We're going live with the Purdue post game. The Gophers find a way to get a dub. It wasn't pretty, but a win is a win is a win here at the Gopher Broke podcast. What up, y'all? You are listening to the Gopher Broke podcast, the live after game postcast. This is Just Kane Rob with you. Tristan Spamford is not on it for this one. He had some things to do. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it either. I was actually at the game live and as a fan for the first time in a while. So it was nice to experience that. But we had to leave a little bit early with the little 1.5 years old, the longest Gopher game in a while. I mean, a 2-hour first half. That was tough, but overall, the game was sloppy. It was a little ugly. Didn't love to see how it all played out, but it played out in a win, and that's all that matters when we look at it in the end. So your Minnesota Golden Gophers find a way to get it done, 27-20 against the Purdue Boilermakers. Now, look. There's some things to talk about with this game. My mic might be a little weird because it's running off the computer and won't let me switch in the middle of a recording, but I hope you can bear with me. In this game, the defense was getting picked apart for a lot of the game. The offense looked horrible against probably the second worst defense that they've played on the season so far. They couldn't get anything done. The rush game was not getting it done. A total of 30 total rushing yards on 18 attempts. Just ugly all around in the offensive run game. The offense as a whole, it started to come alive later on. Drake Lindsey finishes with 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but that's on 47% completion. And that is because I think the Gophers were just really trying to force the cause when it came to, look, I'm not going to lie to you. The refs were awful in this game. They were awful. They were missing holdings left and right. They were missing pass interferences left and right. It's like they weren't watching the game. But then all of a sudden, Minnesota was still trying to take shots on those pass interferences. They were trying to pick the pass interferences and get them called out ahead of time and trying to force the point in a way. And the refs just weren't giving it to them, but they kept attacking it that way, kept having incompletions. And that's why you look at this completion percentage, you're like, holy crap, that looks awful. But in the end, they got it done. They found a way. The defense, it was like a bipolar game for the defense, which is just wild. It's getting picked apart. It can't get the pressure. Ryan Brown, the quarterback of the Purdue Boilermakers, on third down, consistently finds a way to roll out of the pocket and somehow get a first down. It was the most frustrating process to watch throughout the game. The same thing happening over and over and over. It is truly insanity, the definition of insanity. But in the end, the Gophers rally up. They find 3 interceptions in this game, and the biggest one coming from Coy Parrish in the fourth quarter. A pick 6 to seal the game. Now, that wasn't fully sealed from that pick 6. They still had to earn it going forward. The Gophers couldn't get an offensive drive to run the clock out. Defense has to stand strong, but they do that in the end. The defense ratcheted up in that fourth quarter, especially at the end. They ratcheted up when they needed to close out this game. But prior to that, it was ugly. It was tough. There was not... it wasn't a game where you say the defense was the reason we won. Like, in the end, they were because of the interceptions and whatnot. But it was still, they were giving up their own fair share. The offense looked horrible. So even in a win, there are a lot of things. It was hard to be fully proud or impressed by the win, knowing you are playing one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, in the Purdue Boilermakers team that has been giving up like 30 plus points on the reg. Now, in the end, the Gophers get 27 points, but it did not feel like that. It did not feel like a game where the Gophers were a high scoring, high flying offense by any stretch or means. In fact, a lot of penalties in that final offensive drive coming down to tie up the game helped us continue on in that drive. So it was tough. It was ugly. It was not a fun one, but in the end, it was a win, and that is all that matters. Now, look, Devin Williams is not getting enough credit for the Gophers on the season, I don't think. He has led the team in tackles multiple weeks now. He has come up with big plays multiple weeks. He had a tackle for loss in this game. He had a quarterback hit in this game. John Nestor had a clutch pick. Kerry Brown had a diving pick off of the running back pass option, and Kerry Brown got the juices going with this Gopher defense when he had that first interception. And then, of course, the pick six from Coy Parrish himself to seal this bad boy up. Look, even though it was ugly, even though it wasn't pretty, even though the defense had its flaws of its own outside of those interceptions, it was a win. And you can't complain about a win when it comes down to it. But the Gophers have to look forward too. We still got Nebraska and now a short week where we have to, again, play at home, but it's a Friday night game, not your regular Saturday. So it'll be a shorter week for the Gophers, a quicker recovery period for the Gophers. Lots of little dings and little injuries throughout this game as well. Maverick Baranowski getting looked at twice, Lemecki Brockington getting looked at twice. So hopefully the Gophers didn't suffer anything big time, but you also have a shorter window to turn around on those injuries. And with that, I hope that the Gophers can find ways to be more explosive on offense because I swear to you, it was either you were taking a shot at trying to get a pass interference in this game or you were taking a screen pass, whether it was a bubble screen, a wide receiver screen, a running back screen, you name it. The Gophers were finding every which way to throw screen passes in this game, but we know this quarterback has a big arm. We know this quarterback can take shots downfield, and you just played a defense that was under 100 or worse in the rush defense, under 100 or worse in the pass defense, under 100 worse in scoring defense, and somehow you made this defense look really good for 3/4 of this game. So the Gophers have to find ways to get more creative on offense, to get the running game going. This offensive line has had really strong moments of pass protection and really awful moments of run protection for multiple weeks now. And you just went from playing one of the best teams in the Big Ten Conference to one of the worst teams in the Big Ten Conference, and it still looked relatively the same. And that is what is worrying to me. So the Gophers have to find a way to respond, have to find a way to get more push in the ground game because you have one of the best running backs in the conference, but he hasn't been able to show that because of health and now because of offensive line struggles when it comes to the run game. We got to find a way to find an answer and get Darius Taylor the ball. He was the spark in the earlier portions of this game to get the Gophers offense going with the screen passes and what have you on their first scoring drive. You got to find ways to get the ball in number one's hands and let him create, but that also means on the ground, making openings for him, making lanes for him because he has the vision, he has the contact balance, but right now we are just not giving him the opportunities with the offensive line play. So that has to get cleaned up, especially in a shorter week heading to Nebraska. Now, Nebraska has a strong pass defense. They have been in the top of the country to this point in the season. They also have a quarterback who is going to be licking his chops to play this Gophers secondary that has given up quite a few pass yards in the last few weeks. Ryan Brown finished with 203 today, which was not his best outing. 2 interceptions as well. But Athan picked us apart in the first half. JKS picked us apart. Julian Sayin picked us apart. So this Gophers secondary is going to have to strap in because Dylan Raiola is going to be trying to pick this secondary apart next week when we play Nebraska at Minnesota. So this is not a team that's going to be any easier. In fact, it's probably going to be a lot harder of a matchup. This is not the Nebraska of olden times. This is not the Nebraska of the last 5 years where you look at the game and you're like, look, we own them. We've been kicking their butts. We've been making it happen. No, this Nebraska team is legit. This Nebraska team can get it done. So you cannot overlook them. And if this defense can't find ways to get rid of the lows in the roller coaster, then they're going to have some issues and they might not be able to come on top of that one. But if they can find ways to respond early, if they can find ways to get active and lock it down and have more interceptions quicker in the game, I think they'll have a chance against this Nebraska team. And on top of that, you got to find ways to score off of the interceptions. Kerry Brown gets that huge momentum interception in the first half, and you don't find a way to turn it into any points. You got to find ways to take advantage of the turnovers. Now, Drake Lindsey had a turnover of his own today. It wasn't the best looking. On top of that, again, the completion percentage was way down, so we got to find ways to improve our best. Now, if you were watching this Gophers team, and you were watching them in that first half especially, but even through the third quarter, I was thinking to myself, look, it's homecoming week. These boys must have been out on the town. They must have been at the frat. They must have been at the sorority row, whatever they were doing. They looked hungover. They looked slow. They looked lackadaisical. And then they found little moments to respond. But this team has not had the fire or the energy that you like to see, especially from a young team. You would think they'd be hungry. You'd think they'd be after it, ready to prove the world wrong. They said they were going to be delusional this year, but I haven't seen a team that's truly playing delusional like they could do anything. They look like they're still figuring things out and they're not fully assured of themselves. And I want to see more swagger. I want to see more confidence. I want to see more I am him, I am them. I am ready to show you what Minnesota is all about. But I haven't been getting that consistently. So I'm hoping this win can get the Gophers back on track. They can come out with some energy and some fire next week against Nebraska, and then they can find a way to turn it into momentum. Because, like I said, heading into this week kicked off the biggest 4 game stretch of the Gophers season. You are now 4-2. That means you need 2 more wins to be bowl eligible, but hopefully you can get more than that and get back towards the 8-9 win category on the season that we've been starting to become accustomed to with your Minnesota Golden Gophers. But it's not going to be easy. You've got Nebraska, who looks legit. You've got after them, you got Iowa, and we know that Minnesota has struggled with Iowa. Now Iowa, look, they're a beatable team. They are not some juggernaut by any means, not even with this Mark Gronowski or what have you. Their running game is not the same. Caleb Johnson is not in that backfield. Minnesota can respond against this Iowa team, but you can't if you don't have the fight. You can't if you don't have the swagger. You can't if you don't bring the energy on the road at Kinnick Stadium. So again, you go from Nebraska at home to Iowa on the road, come back home to Michigan State. You just won on the Purdue, so that's the 4 game stretch I'm talking about. You got 1 win. You need to have a minimum of 2 wins in this 4 game stretch, but hopefully you can make it at least 3. And it's a possibility you could win all 4. If you win all 4, you're trending towards a successful season because all of a sudden those 4 games plus the 2 in the beginning and the Rutgers win, that gives you 7 wins right there. And then you have 2 games that are winnable at the end at Northwestern and versus Wisconsin, both winnable games. Again, that could turn you to a 9-win season. I'm not talking Oregon. I'm not talking about upsets. After what we put on against Ohio State, I can't get there right now. But what I can get to is Minnesota finding success in this 4 game stretch. And if they find a way to win all 4, you can have a very successful season. If you find a way to win 3 of them, you're still on track to do well. If you only win 2, you might be having a mediocre season. But I think this Gophers team is better than just a mediocre season. They don't play like it all the time, they don't play with consistency, but they are a good team at times. They have a lot of potential, is what I should say. I shouldn't say they are a good team. We're still figuring out what this team is, but they have a ton of potential. They have a high upside quarterback who, even though he had a terrible completion percentage today, has the upside to give you 250 plus any given time. We have a running back that we know can be one of the best dual threat backs in the country if the offensive line can give him some holes to create. You've got some wide receiver talent. Lemecki's held his own. Javon Tracy has had moments. Jalen Smith has had some over the top moments. Jamison Gears shows moments. Again, you've got some young pieces that are rock solid, but we need improvements from the offensive line, especially in the run game. And we need the pressure to cook up on the defensive line. We're not getting enough pressure. We're not getting enough sacks, and we're giving QBs too much time to roll out of the pocket and find something on the move. That has been a consistent issue for the Gophers over the last 4 weeks now. So that's got to be priority number 1 as you fix it, because otherwise Dylan Raiola with Nebraska is going to take advantage of it. But in the end, the Gophers get it done. They get 3 interceptions on the day. They stop the bleeding, and they make it happen and win 27-20 to the Purdue Boilermakers. I appreciate y'all for tapping in live. We didn't have Tristan Spanford today, but hopefully you will tap in with us each and every week here at the Gopher Broke podcast, where we do our show on Tuesday or Wednesday nights and drop it the next morning, and then we do our live post games as well. For me today, the player of the game had to be Coy Parrish. The pick 6 to wrap it up, plus some clutch tackles in this game. He had 5 tackles, 2 solo, 1 interception, which was a pick 6. He's got to be your player of the game. The moment of the game, I think that Kerry Brown's interception and Coy Parrish's interception are both tied for the moment of the game because they gave you the juice to start believing in your squad. Now, I am still skeptical about the offense and what we are doing overall, but there's still moments. There's still glimmers of hope. We still have a competent quarterback with high upside, and he is a red shirt freshman. So the Gophers have a lot of talent. They have some hope, but we got to start putting it together. We are now crossing the halfway point of the season, and you have to start identifying who you are. And I'm not sure this Gophers offense knows who it is quite yet. And they need to figure it out in a hurry in a short week at home versus Nebraska on Friday night in the bright lights. Because if they don't, it could be a long week headed to Kinnick on the road. You don't want to turn that into a bad back-to-back stretch. But if you can get some swagger against Nebraska and you can pull a win on that one, things start to get interesting as you look at the rest of the season. Again, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe over on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be doing a mailbag episode this upcoming week for the Nebraska week. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you would like Tristan and myself to talk about on this week's show, be sure to shoot us a note over on Twitter or on the YouTube comments or anything like that. We will get those included in our show this week as well. But I appreciate y'all for listening and tapping in. Roll the boat, Scotty Ma, go Gophers as always, and please don't forget to hit subscribe.